All right. We good? Can everybody hear me?
Can we can hear you?
All right. So so the week before last, we talked about seeking the Father. We went all through the different things that we needed to do and what not to do concerning all the things that are going on, today in the world. We identified how some of the things that are going on today should and need to be ignored for the most part. Um, During this past memorial, I saw that. You know, I saw people understanding the importance of what these feast days were and what it brought. Because we have to understand that the things of this world should be ignored, not because you don't care, but because the Father says it's necessary. It's because we should come out of these rehearsals, which that's what these are, the Prasad and unleavened bread. This is rehearsal, and we should come out of here with the notion that, hey, I'm doing what the Father told me to do. Also knowing that obedience has its rewards. Um, Unleavened bread should always teach us that there is always room for improvement. You're always going to find something out about yourself that you didn't see before. And if you're serious about this walk, then you will be serious enough to make the necessary changes. Moreh Lamar talked about that on his last lesson. Passat has shown me the importance of conditions. It's shown me that everyone wants a hero, but things start to turn gray when that hero has conditions. Um, During this time, people in the work are talking about COVID-19. Of course, it's everywhere. You can't avoid it. But for some reason, people seem to be comparing this to the plagues of the time of the first Passat. But I don't really think people understand what those plagues meant. Or well, I should say, the one that ended our ancestors' slavery in Egypt or Mitzrayim. You know, they wanted to come out of the land of their oppressors. And Moreh Chanan, he talked about it today. He read from Exodus 3:7 to 9. The Father said, yeah, I hear you, but first you have to do something for me. So my point is, even to this day, if you want the help from the Father, you just simply need to do what He tells you to do. The best thing about it is that He's given us year after year after year to rehearse this process. And we need to get back to focusing on the blueprint that was laid out in front of us. We talked about that. We need to get back in the habit of focusing on our creator of all things. Now, not what man is throwing at us, from left and right. Some of those things can be avoided. It's just a matter of discipline, having discernment in the matter, relying on what the word says and not man. You know, Man would tell you everybody's sick and dying 10 at a time. Yet, you got to fight the next man to buy some toilet paper. Better yet, you got to stand in line to get in the store. You know, the PowerPoint's not changing because I'm just reading right now. Or yes, I'm just talking before we get started. Um, Man would tell you that everybody needs to wear masks, yet the government doesn't make them readily available to everyone who needs one. You know, there's a video floating around on the internet. Um, you know, I'm just talking right now. This that we haven't getting started yet. For everybody that's asking, there's a video on the internet floating around. What this young man was describing a dream he had. In this dream, he stated that he was on a familiar road and there was a bridge, and he was walking with someone that he did not know. So as they were walking, the scene kind of reminded him of the movie I Am Legend with Will Smith. He said that there was abandoned cars and abandoned buildings everywhere. So, but anyway, there was water under the bridge, and it was blood red. Then he looked in the sky, and the sky was blood red, not the moon. He said just the sky. The sky was blood red. And then there was like what he described as loudspeakers. He didn't see these speakers, but he could hear them saying mandatory vaccines. Everybody has to take the chip. Now, in his eyes, to him, this meant that this was the mark of the beast. Um, the speakers went on to say that everyone has to take the mark. So when he woke up, he considered this to be a warning that there was going to be a physical mark. But here's what I got out of this, since above him was red and below him was red, this reminded me of Isaiah 118. Come now, let us reason together, says Yahuah. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though you are red like crimson, they shall become like wool. Um, if you are willing and obedient to me, this meant that if you are willing and obedient to me, I'm sorry, I had to read the rest of it. So to me, this meant that the prophecy was already being fulfilled in his dream. He was walking with someone but didn't know the person. This could mean a couple of things, but I choose to believe that this was a warning for him. So with that being said, this could have been a messenger trying to show him a way out of sin. He and everyone else needs to understand that as this stuff progresses, we're going to start to see what path everybody will start to take. And we talked about that in the last lesson. Your inner man is going to start to come out. It's going to start to manifest. That's why application is key to this understanding, to this walk. We all talk about what's going to happen and what we will do, but now this stuff is really starting to happen. Like Moreh Chanan says, these are the birth pains. They're little ones, but they really are starting to happen, and we're going to see how everybody's going to react. All right, now we can get started. Walking towards the light. Start here in Matthew 6:22 to 23. The eye is the lamp of the body. If therefore thy eye be sound, thy whole body will be enlightened. But if thy eye be distempered, thy whole body will be dark. If then the light which is in thee be darkness, how great will the darkness be? What does light versus darkness represent? We know it's a metaphor for a person's spiritual condition. Either you're walking towards life or towards death. It's a straight and narrow path, and this is Moreh Yasharon's one of his favorite verses. Thy law is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. He made a song about it. All right, so ponder on this, okay? You don't have to answer this, but what does Matthew 6:22 mean when dealing with the eyes? So you can go back, have some time, you can read that up and then answer that question. But someone answer this question for me right now. What represents a good eye? Somebody.
Person that gives.
Exactly.
Okay, maybe I should have said somebody but a Moreh. Okay, thank you. Proverbs 22:9. He that has a good eye shall be blessed, for he gives of his bread to the poor. So anybody but a Moreh, let me know what represents an evil eye.
A stingy eye, somebody that doesn't give.
Ooh, I like it.
Or selfish.
Mm-hmm. Proverbs 23:6. Eat you not the bread of him that has an evil eye, neither desire you
Stingy
his
eye, somebody
dainty
that doesn't.
meats. Mhm. So as we can see from reading of Matthew 6:22, when it came to having a good eye, generous people will be blessed because Yahuah will repay them. And we see that in Proverbs 19:17. Whoever is generous to the poor leads to Yahuah, and he will repay him for his deed. Now, this is in contrast to those that are stingy. These people are these people who are duplicitous or deceitful and only interested in their own wealth. The eyes of the Father are watching. Remember, everything is being recorded, good and bad. So now, I take this from 1 John 5:7. This is coming from the Syriac New Testament, translated into English from the Fascito. For there are three that testify in heaven of Shamayim, the Father, the Word, and the set apart Ruach or Spirit, and these three are one, or unified, or in agreement. You see, I have an asterisk right there. I just want to throw this in. This verse is wanting in most manuscripts, meaning that it should be in there, and it's omitted in the Edit London 1826. I remember a couple lessons ago when Moreh Chanan was talking about, the further you go back, the more context you will get, especially when it comes to the Septuagint. This is just one example. This is when they started to pull things out. So the further you go back, the more you might actually get to make proper context of what you're reading. Okay. Continue along with walking towards the light. Matthew 6:24. No man can serve two masters, for he will either hate one and love the other, or he will attend to one and neglect the other. You cannot serve Elohim and a worldly temper. Therefore, I say to you, be not anxious about your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor about your body or what you shall wear. Is not life a greater gift than food, and the body than raiment? So, in other words, people who serve Elohim faithfully can trust him to meet their, it shouldn't say material needs, it should say all needs. You know, you just have to have that faith and do what he tells you to do. Again, I'm going to repeat this multiple times. Obedience has its reward. Right. So, talking about the light, we're going to come to the conversion of Shaul. So remember, we're dealing with the eyes right now. This is one of the gates. So we're talking about the eyes. So let's talk about Shaul for a little bit. Now I'm going to read Acts 9:1-19. This is coming out of the scriptures 2009. So that's what TS 2009 stands for, the scriptures. All right. But Shaul still breathing threats and murder against the taught ones of the master. Having come to the high priest, asked from him letters to the congregations of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, to bring them bound to Jerusalem. And it came to be that as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly a light flashed around him from heaven, or Shamayim, and he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Shaul, Shaul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, who are you, master? And the master said, I am Yahusha, whom you are persecuting. Both trembling and being astonished, he said, Master, what do you wish me to do? And the master said to him, arise and go into the city, and you shall be told what you have to do. And the men journeying with him stood speechless, hearing indeed the voice, but seeing no one. And Shaul arose from the ground, but when his eyes were opened, he saw no one. And leading him by the hand, they brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight and did not eat nor drink. And there was at Damascus a certain taught one by the name of Hananiah. And the master said unto him in a vision, Hananiah. And he said, here I am, master. And the master said to him, arise and go to the street called Straight, and seek in the house of Yehudah for one called Shaul of Tarsus. For look, he is praying, and has seen in a vision a man named Hananiah coming in and laying his hand on him so as to see again. And Hananiah answered, Master, I have heard from many about this man, how many evils he did to your set apart ones in Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all those calling on your name. But the master said to him, go, for he is a chosen vessel of mine to bear my name before the nations, sovereigns, and the children of Israel. For I shall show him how much he has to suffer for my name. And Hananiah went away and went into the house, and laying his hands on him, he said, Brother Shaul, the master Yahusha, who appeared to you on the way as you came, has sent me, so that you might see again and be filled with the set apart spirit, or the Ruach. And immediately there fell from his eyes, as it were, scales. Let me stop right there. For those of you who are at the assembly, many times when I pray, even on here, I pray and I thank the Father for removing the scales from my eyes. So this is the first step that we have in receiving that light, receiving the word, right? And he received his sight. And rising up, he was immersed. And having received food, he was strengthened. And Shaul was with the top ones at Damascus some days. So we have Shaul, who in his own words said he was called to be a missionary to the Gentiles. Then Shaul finds himself surrounded by the esteem of Yahushua. This experience of Yahushua's esteem is so overwhelming that it forces Shaul to the ground. Where else have we heard of something like this?
Oh, got leprosy, it looks like in the picture.
Okay.
I believe in the book of Daniel.
Uh-huh. Anybody else? I'm gonna get you, Moreh Chanan. Anybody else? Okay. How about Ezekiel 2:1? Like the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness all around. Such was the appearance of the likeness of the esteem of Yahuah. And when I saw it, I fell on my face and I heard the voice of one speaking. See, Shaul's physical blindness was an outward manifestation of his own spiritual blindness that he ironically had just begun to see for the first time. This was also a strong visualization of just how the word can humble someone, how it could bring you to your knees at any moment. Right? It is essential as a child of Elohim that we are mindful of what we look at and what we see. But if the eye is bad, the body will be full of darkness. In other words, how you see reality determines whether you are in the dark or not. Spiritually, how do you see reality in this world? Can anybody answer that right now? For what's going on spiritually, how do you see reality in this world? Your reality. This is your opinion. Don't nobody see nothing? Okay.
Father is working. He's moving.
Anybody else? Hallelujah.
I see a period of testing of faith, either faith being building or faith being shaken.
You see inside start to be picked. All right.
I see that.
Go ahead. Whoever that was, go ahead.
I basically I see that during this time of course. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you got your speakers on.
I basically I see that during this time of course. Okay, so during the time of quarantine, I basically see that Yah is using me in a way where he's causing me to draw close to him through this time of quarantine, because it's not a lot of stuff to do, and he's just isolating me in a way to draw him closer to him spiritually.
Yes, a lot of people are trying to spend this time wisely, having discernment on basically what they need to do, not what they need to do according to the world, but according to the Father's word. Hallelujah. So let's see here, Mark 8:22-26. Then he cometh to Bethesda, and they bring a blind man to him, and entreat him to touch him. Thereupon, taking the blind man by the hand, he led him out of the village, and after spitting on his eyes, he laid his hands on him, and asked him if he seeth anything. And he looking up said, I see the men like trees walking about. Then he laid his hands on his eyes again, and he made him look up, and his sight was restored, and he saw them all clearly. Then he sent him to his house, saying, neither go to the village nor tell anyone in the village. All right. So when Yahushua healed the blind man, he asked him, do you see anything? The man replied, I see men as trees walking. So this indicates that the man is not fully healed. He could see, but he was confused. Yahushua touched his eyes again, then he saw clearly. He had not only sight, but insight. to make sense of what he saw. So basically this is saying seeing without insight is seeing without understanding. It is seeing without discerning significance, and that is not really seeing at all. The same goes for when reading without context. How much scripture do you really understand when you have no context behind it? You know, when it comes to our reality here and the truth, the most important kind of seeing is the seeing of spiritual realities. A lot of people like where they are in their life right now. You know, nobody wants their little bubble to be burst. You know, having their reality broken can lead to something they're not ready for. Not knowing that without breaking those chains, they will never really be able to see what's in front of them. And sadly, most are still blind to this concept. They can see good and well with the physical eye, but their inward eye is blind, which you know is attached to the inward man that we talked about so much. Um, so their perception of this world is faulty. The physical picture is clear, but the spiritual picture is dim. This darkness of heart results in spiritual death. And then we have Ephesians 1:18-19, that he will enlighten the eyes of your understanding, that you may see what the hope of this invitation of his is, and what the riches of the esteem of this inheritance of his in the saints, and what the exceeding greatness of this power of his for us who believe. So that leads me into hope. All right. The Greek word used for hope here is elpis, which refers to in this context to the fullness of salvation that believers will experience at the Mashiach's return. And we'll see an example of this in Ephesians 1:14, which is an earnest of the inheritance of us for the complete redemption of the purchase, for the praise of his esteem. So Shaul or Paul highlights three blessings the believers can expect: hope for the future, Elohim's claim on them as his inheritance, and the great power of Elohim himself at work on their behalf. And we talked a lot about that last one. You know, said it before, obedience breeds rewards, right? And consider this a down payment. I don't know if people still say that, but consider this a down payment. The gift of the set apart work empowers believers to live set apart lives. We're seeing another example of this in Ephesians 3:16. According to the riches of his esteem, grant you to be strengthened by his Ruach for the inner man, that by means of this belief. All right, so now back to the word for hope. Again, it's el peace. It's from the prime root of el po, to anticipate, usually with pleasure, expectation, or confidence, faith, or hope. Now, the noun el piece is used in a Septuagint to translate the majority of instances of the Hebrew word for hope, which is tikvah. And this is literally a cord as an attachment, but figuratively it is expectancy, expectations, or expected, hope live, or the thing I long for. Now, in the Brit Kadashah, commonly called the New Testament, it may be used in a general sense of expectation. We'll see an example of that in 1 Corinthians 9:10, 2 Corinthians 1:7, or in a general sense, it could be possibility. And we will see an example of that in Acts 16:19 and Acts 27:20. So let's start with 1 Corinthians 9:10. Or doeth he not unquestionably say this for our sake? For us indeed it was written, because he who ploweth ought to plow in hope, and he who treasures in hope ought to partake of his hope. And 2 Corinthians 1:7, our hope of you is steadfast, as we know that as you are partakers of the suffering, so will you be also of the consolation. No one said that keeping your head up and your eyes forward in this truth was going to be easy. We talked about how all through our life, as we know it in this walk, there are going to be tests, none of which are easy, okay? These things are put in place to make sure that the inner man is pure. Now, occasionally the eye represents the whole process of seeing and by extension of understanding and obedience. We're going to break away real quick. Just want to throw this in here. This is in Jeremiah 5:21. Hear these things, I beseech you, O foolish and stupid people. They have eyes, but they do not see, ears they have, but they do not hear. So, however, in the Torah or the Old Testament, it is the ear which is generally used in this figurative way, and we'll have more on the ears in our next lesson. But the eye is used to express knowledge, character, attitude, inclination, opinion, passion, and response. That's all about that inner man. The eye is a good barometer of the inner thoughts of man. You can't escape your inner man. Right? Yahuah says that that's what I'm checking for. The eyes are a mirror of man's inner being. Given everything that's going on right now, how do you think people are doing thus far? How do you think people are handling this? You don't have to answer that. Just ponder on that. All right. So back to possibilities and look in Acts 16 and 19. When her masters saw that the hope of their gain was gone, they laid hold of Paul and Silas and dragged them to the forum before the magistrates. In Acts 27 and 20, now as neither sun nor stars appeared for several days, and the tempest still bore hard upon us, all hopes of escaping were at last taken away. In its theological sense, LP is based on Elohim's promises. And we'll see an example of that in Acts 26 and 6, Titus 1 and 2, and Hebrews 10 and 23. All right, promises. And now I stand or reign for a hope of the promise which Elohim made to our fathers. That was in Acts 26 and 6, Titus 1 and 2, which the Elohim of truth promised before the times consisting of ages. And in Hebrews 10 and 23, let us hold fast the profession of this hope without wavering, for he who hath promised is faithful. So with all three of these, we can see the Father isn't letting us down in these times. We're letting him down by not obeying him. All right. This expresses the sense of anticipation of their fulfillment. Right? The term may be used to refer either to that for which one hopes. And we'll see that in Colossians 1 and 5 and Titus 2 and 13. On the account of hope lay up for you in the heavens of Shaman, of which you heard before by the true word of the gospel of good news. And in Titus 2 and 13, waiting for the blessed hope and the bright display of the esteem of the great Elohim and Savior of us, Yahushua HaMashiach. So this is all considering the hope. This is what people are hoping for and waiting on. All right, now this is also could lead to the basis of hope. All right. This is Colossians 1:27 and 1 Thessalonians 2 and 19. So Colossians 1 and 27, to whom Elohim hath been pleased to make known the riches of the esteem of his mystery among the nations, namely Mashiach in you, the hope of esteem. And 1 Thessalonians 2 and 19, for what is our hope or will by our joy or crown of rejoicing? Will it not be you in the presence of our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach at his coming? So LPs also could mean to look forward with confidence to that which is good and beneficial, something to hope for or just to hope. And the reality for those of us who follow the commandments is that looking anywhere other than to our Creator will spell disaster for us, especially in these times. We must stay on the path that the Father has set up for us at all costs. Some of us are so quick to cancel out someone outside of the covenant as though we already have the ticket punch for the kingdom ourselves. You have to examine yourself before you can sit up there and try to talk about somebody else, especially in these times. People are panicking and they're not relying on the word that they're supposed to be relying on. So that brings me to 1 John. All right, 1 John 2 and 16. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the desire of the eyes and the pomp or pride of this life are not of the Father, but are of the world. So this is a dichotomy or a contrast to the set apart Ruach's work. What does it say in John 3:6? That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Ruach is the Ruach. And in Romans 13:11-14, besides this, you know the time that the hour has come for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. The night is far gone, the day is at hand. So then let us cast off the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in quarreling and jealousy, but put on the sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its disasters. We got to put on this word. This is what's going to keep you on the straight and narrow. The government and everybody else is banking on you to not do this, especially the adversary. He don't want you to follow his word. He wants you to go off the path. It'll make it easier for him. All right. Ephesians 2:4, among whom we all once lived in the passions of our flesh, carrying out the desires of the body and the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, like the rest of mankind. 1 Peter 4:2, so as to live for the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for human passions, but for the will of Elohim. And 2 Peter 2:18, for speaking loud boasts of folly, they entice by sensual passions of the flesh those who are barely escaping from those who live in error. Now, there's nothing wrong with being in the flesh, meaning if you want to do fleshy things, then by all means go at it. Be of this world. The thing is that if you are a part of this covenant and you are supposed to be walking in righteousness and in truth, then this world and the flesh aren't supposed to have anything to offer you. This is the same thing as either walking in the light or walking in darkness. All right. Now, being of the flesh refers to the physical body in contrast to what is spiritual. This becomes a fundamental change in living for Elohim's kingdom versus a human kingdom, parallel by light and darkness. People are transformed by the work of the set apart Ruach. All right. So Romans 12:1-2, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may know experimentally what the will of Elohim is, which is good and acceptable and perfect. Now, back to 1 John 2:16. In this verse, we are warned against anything that would entice us through our eyes. The Bible warns us against haughty eyes, which Yahuah hates, as Proverbs 6:17. Haughty eyes, or exalting oneself, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood. It warns us against flirting eyes in Isaiah 3:16. Yahuwah said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty and walk with outstretched necks, glancing wantonly with their eyes, menacing along as they go, tinkling with their feet. And it also warns us of eyes full of adultery. 2 Peter 2:14, having eyes full of adultery and unceasing sin, and snaring unstable souls. So, what does all this mean in today's world? Well, for that we will have to go back to where it all began. We all know that there's the saying that there is nothing new under the sun. All right. So we find the fundamental statement that Yahuwah made the eye. We see in that in Proverbs 20:12 and Psalms 94:9. So starting with Proverbs 20:12, the hearing ear and the seeing eye, Yahuwah has made them both. And Psalms 94:9, he who planted the ear does he not hear? He who formed the eye, does he not see? In most texts, the eye is the focus of personal perception and knowledge. In the eye, the human soul is revealed. We'll see that in Genesis 3:5 and 3:7, which clearly illustrates this personal admixture. So Genesis 3:5, for Elohim knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like Elohim, knowing good and evil. We all know that during the DNA series, Moreh Lamadyahu talked about this just a little bit. In Genesis 3:7, then the eyes of both were open, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And he also talked about this as well. You know, the serpent declares that the eyes of the man and the woman will be open as a result of their eating of the tree in the middle of the garden, so that they will be like Elohim. Verse 5 and 7 confirms that their eyes are indeed open, but with the consequence that they both recognize that they are naked or that they lost their covering, right? So in Genesis 21 and 19, Elohim opens Hagar's eyes to see that her eyes so that she sees the well. And we can get a comparison to that in Numbers 23 and 30, 22 and 31. So Genesis 21 and 19, then Elohim opened her eyes and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink. Numbers 22 and 31, then Yahuah opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of Yahuah standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down and fell on his face. Now, in Psalms 119 and 18, David asked Yahuah to open his eyes that he may behold the wondrous things in Yahuah's law. Open my eyes that I may behold wondrous things out of your law. Yahuah's enlightening the eyes implies renewal or preservation of life. We see a couple of examples of this, starting in Psalms 13 and 3, Psalms 19 and 8, Proverbs 29 and 13, and 15 and 30. So 3, remember we're talking about enlightening the eyes. This is implying a renewal of preservation or preservation of life. Consider and answer me, O Yahuah my Elohim. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Psalms 19 and 8. The precepts of Yahuah are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahuah is pure, enlightening the eyes. Proverbs 29 and 13. The poor man and the oppressor meet together. Yahuah gives light to the eyes of both. And we'll come back to that shortly. You see, Yahuah can open the eyes of anybody he chooses, right? In the walk or out. Proverbs 15 and 30. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart, and the good news refreshes the bones. So in Proverbs 20 and 13, this takes us into the spirit of practical everyday wisdom. Open your eyes and you will have plenty of bread. The perception thus presupposes an inward disposition that not necessarily available at will, but frequently experienced as a gift. It is rooted in encounter with objects, with human beings, and with Elohim. And again, that's Proverbs 20 and 13. Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes and you will have plenty of bread. So basically, this walk isn't for everyone. You know, sadly, not everyone will have their eyes open. And honestly, just because your eyes are open to the truth doesn't mean you are safe. You still have to put forth an effort, right? Remember, application is key. The Father may have opened your eyes, but it's up to you to put in the work thereafter. Now, with that being said, the eyes of the people are shut as the effective result, like in Isaiah's message, a collective blindness that nullifies the disposition to perceive. We'll see that in Isaiah 6 and 10, and we can compare it to Isaiah 32 and 3 and Isaiah 44 and 18. Just as quickly as the Father can open them, meaning your eyes, he can shut them just as fast. All right, Isaiah 6 and 10, make the heart of this people dull and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their hearts and turn and be healed. The Father will straight up take it away. I call that the falling away. You know, you ever wonder why some people fall away and there's no light left in them? The door has been shut completely. Remember, we talked about those scales in Acts. Those scales can go right back up. It'd be as though you never knew anything. All right, Isaiah 44 and 18. They know not, nor do they discern, for he has shut their eyes so that they cannot see, and their hearts so they cannot understand. Can you imagine that? Think of how much darkness you already have to have in order for the Father to be like, that's okay. Shut the door on that one. You know. Now this is in contrast to Isaiah 32 and 3. Then the eyes of those who see will not be closed, and the ears of those who hear will give attention. And what we always been saying, obedience has its rewards. So again, just as the shutting of eyes is associated with death, so the opening of eyes is associated with awakening to new life. And we'll see that in 2 Kings 4:35, preceded by verse 34, the actual X. So you can just see what I mean about awakening to new life. So the result here in 4:34, 2 Kings 4:34. Then he withdrew, and when he had walked backward and forward in the house, he went up and bent himself upon the child 7 times. And the child opened his eyes. Now we can talk about the number 7, but not today. But let's go back up one. Let's go up to verse 34. And having prayed to Yahuah, he went up and lay down upon the child and put his mouth on the child's mouth and his eyes on its eyes and his hands on its hands and bent himself down upon it. And the flesh of the child was warm. All right. The element of life is also present when the tribal oracle says that Yahuah's eyes are dark or chaklio with wine. We see that in Genesis 49:12, or when Jonathan's eyes are described as brightening at the taste of honey. All right. So we're still talking about life. We're still talking about life being renewed. Genesis 49:12. His eyes are more exhilarating than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. 1 Samuel 14:27 and 29. And we also will see this in Ezra 9:8 too. I'm sorry. But Jonathan had not heard his father charge the people with the oath. So he put out the tip of the staff that was in his hand and dipped it in the honeycomb and put his hand to his mouth. And his eyes became bright. Then one of the people said, your father strictly charged the people with an oath, saying, cursed be the man who eats food this day. And the people were faint. Then Jonathan said, my father has troubled the land. See how my eyes have become bright because I tasted a little of this honey. Ezra 9:8. But now for a brief moment, favor has been shown by Yahuah our Elohim to leave us a remnant and to give us a secure hold within his set apart place, that our Elohim may brighten our eyes and grant us a little reviving in our slavery. Excessive vitality noted with disappropriation is indicated by the statement that someone's eyes swell out with fatness. Yasar Ming Halib. All right, Psalm 73:7. Their eyes swell out through fatness. Their hearts overflow with follies. In these passages, the eye is associated with the heart. The eye is accordingly a concentrated expression of the personality of people's disposition toward Elohim, human beings, and the world about them. In a similar vein, Isaiah 43:8 speaks of the people as being blind, though they have eyes. Bring out the people who are blind yet have eyes, who are deaf yet have ears. And in Isaiah 29:10, which says that Yahuah has closed the eyes of the prophets. For Yahuah has poured out upon you a spirit of deep sleep, and has closed your eyes, the prophets, and covered your heads, the seers. All right. So that's what it was from the perspective in the land. Now we need to come out the land and go back a little further to see why Yahuah had to make these rules and these regulations of. We did this before when it came to praying and when it came to the idols. We had to go back to the source of the problem. Remember when I said when I first started, our ancestors wanted out of Egypt. And this is one of the reasons why they needed to come out. So in Egypt or Mizraim, the eyes play an important role as the organ by which light and physical world are perceived. It is also expressive of personal power. The significance of the eye as a human organ is illustrated by the use of the phrase every eye to mean everyone. A major metaphorical use of the eye is in the epithet eyes of the king of Upper Egypt, used together with ears, and again, we'll get to the ears in the following lesson, of the king of Lower Egypt. As an honorific title of high officials, especially in the 18th dynasty, Egypt is called Eye of Ra, and healing eye. In mythological thought, the sun and moon were the eyes of Horus, god of the heavens. Later we read also of the eyes of Ra. The sun god is said to illuminate the land with his two eyes. Usually, however, the sun is the eye of Ra and the moon the eye of Horus. Horus loses his eye in his battle with Seth, and Thoth brings it back and heals it. A mythological representation of the phases of the moon. Right? You're getting that, but therefore the healed eye is a symbol of life and strength, often used as an amulet with the astropaic powers. And that means, supposedly having the power to avert evil influences or bad luck. Now, you look at the pictures on either side, even at the one at the bottom. Drawn on a coffin, a pair of eyes serves in part to avert the forces of evil, in part to let the dead person look out from the tomb. Now, the solar eye can be sent forth by the sun god for various purposes. More often, however, texts speak of the angry solar eye, separated from the deity, which must be appeased and brought back. We all know that this is what they do. Their whole thought process when it comes to idols is we need to appease them by any means necessary, right? So under these circumstances, it is often identified with a divinized wild lioness. The identification of the divine with light is paralleled by the receptivity to light of the human eye. The relationship between divinity and humanity is that of sight. Blindness is separation from God. Just as the divine eyes are undamaged, so the eyes of human beings are to behold. Now, hold on. Didn't we just read this? Now, again, this is referring to the physical body in contrast to what is spiritual. This becomes a fundamental change in living for Elohim's kingdom versus a human kingdom, parallel by light and darkness. Right? So if you are a part of this covenant, then you are transformed by the work of the set apart Ruach. Now remember, there's nothing new under the sun. All right. So here in Ecclesiastes 1 and 9, what is that which has been? The very same which shall be. And what is that which has been done? The very same which shall be done. For there is nothing entirely new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 3 and 15, that which is already has been, that which is to be, already has been, and Elohim seeks what has been driven away. Now, some older texts will say what has been pursued or who is persecuted. Ecclesiastes 6 and 10, whatever has come to be has already been named, and it is known what man is, and that is not able to dispute with one stronger than he. And Ecclesiastes 1 and 10, is there a thing of which it says, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. In Ecclesiastes 2 and 12, the vanity of living wisely. So I turn to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. So therefore, my question is, what are you worried about? What's going on in the world today as we know it that's knocking you off your square, as what's the saying back in my day? Might be dating myself a little bit. But like we talked about before, the only fear we should live with every day is the fear of Yahuah. We should reference him continually. That's why I make that a staple of my prayers, to give you reverence, to respect you. Because that's what we should be doing every day. That should become a part of us. Having that type of mentality, having that mindset is what's going to keep you on that right path. Because those are the things that you're supposed to do. And those are the things that he is looking for, right? Romans 8 and 33, we all know this one. Elohim's everlasting love. What then shall we say to these things? If Elohim is for us, who can be against us? Not no coronavirus. That can't come against us in this, right? Now, don't be caught with one foot in and one foot out. Choose your path. keep forward so that you may live, or turn around so that you may die. It's either one. Matthew 7:14, because the gate is straight and the way narrow, which leadeth to life. Therefore, there are few who find it. Yahushua explains that the way of Elohim's kingdom is like a road less traveled. The concept of two ways, one leading to life and the other leading to destruction. In Proverbs 4:25, the sage counsels, let your eyes look directly forward, for eyes that are easily diverted lose sight of the word of truth. Again, let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. So let's work together so we can get it together. The eyes also serve as the agents of aesthetic appreciation. See that in Genesis 3:6 and 1 Kings 20:6, Lamentations 2:4. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. And she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. 1 Kings 20:6. Nevertheless, I will send my servants to you tomorrow about this time, and they shall search your house and the houses of your servants, and lay hands on whatever pleases you and take it away. And Lamentations 2:4. He has bent his bow like an enemy, with his right hand set like a foe, and he has killed all who were delightful in our eyes in the tent of the daughter of Zion. He has poured out his fury like fire. Ezekiel's wife is described as attractive, the delight of his eyes. You see that in Ezekiel 24:16. We get some more out of Ezekiel 21 and Ezekiel 25. And Ecclesiastes 11:7 observes that it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So first in Ezekiel 24:16, Son of man, behold, I am about to take the delight of your eyes away from you at a stroke. Yet you shall not mourn or weep, nor shall your tears run down. Ezekiel 24:21. Say to the house of Israel, thus says Yahuah Elohim, behold, I will profane my sanctuary, the pride of your power, the delight of your eyes, and the yearning of your soul, and your sons and your daughters whom you left behind shall fall by the sword. In Ezekiel 24:25, as for you, son of man, surely on the day when I take from them their stronghold, their joy and glory or esteem, the delight of their eyes and their soul's desire, and also their sons and daughters. But then on the contrast, you see in Ecclesiastes 11:7, light is sweet, and it is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So with that, thus the eye can also be the agent of affect and emotion, longing and desire. We'll see this in Proverbs 27:20, excuse me, Ecclesiastes 1:8, 2:10, and 4:8. Sheol and Abaddon are never satisfied, and never satisfied are the eyes of man. And you can reference this to Proverbs 15:11 and Job 26:7. For Abaddon or Abaddon equals destruction. So Shaul and Abaddon lie open before Yahuah. How much more the hearts of the children of man? That was in Proverbs 15:11. In Job 26:7, Shaul is naked before Elohim, and Abaddon has no covering. Now, in Ecclesiastes 1:8, all things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. In Ecclesiastes 2:10, and whatever my eyes desire, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. In Ecclesiastes 4:8, one person who has no other, either son or brother, yet there is no end to all his toil, and his eyes are never satisfied with riches, so that he never asks, for whom am I toiling and depriving myself of pleasure? This also is vanity and an unhappy business. So this is emphasizing the frustration of laboring laboring for what seems like little to no purpose, dealing with things that have nothing to do with the Father. It all goes back to who you are giving your attention to. Is the Father the focus or the things of this world? All right. Where is your focus? Again, are you looking straight ahead of you, or do you keep turning back, looking and see what's going on behind you? Rachel says to her father, "Do not let anger flare up in the eyes of my sovereign." Genesis 31:35. We see another example in Genesis 45:5. In Ezekiel 23:16, Oholibah's lusting after the Babylonians. The eyes are the instigators of sexual desire. Genesis 31:35. And she said to her father, "Let not my sovereign be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of a woman is upon me." So he searched but did not find the household Elohim's. Genesis 45:5. And and now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. Ezekiel 23:16. When she saw them, she lusted after them and sent messengers to them in Chaldea. Ezekiel 27:8 speaks of idols as abominations, or shakuts, on which the eyes feast. We see that in Ezekiel 20:24 as well. And I said to them, "Cast away the detestable things your eyes feast on, every one of you, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt or Misraim. I am Yahuah your Elohim." But they rebelled against me and were not willing to listen to me. None of them cast away the detestable things their eyes feasted on, nor did they forsake the idols of Egypt or Misraim. Then I said, "I will pour out my wrath upon them and spend my anger against them in the midst of the land of Egypt." Now, this is compared to Ezekiel 20:24, because they had not obeyed my rules, but had rejected my statutes and profaned my Sabbaths, and their eyes were set on their fathers' idols. All right. Conversely, Job says in 31:1 that he has made a covenant with his eyes not to look on a virgin. In verse 7, he says that his heart has not followed his eyes. And we could compare that to Numbers 15:39. Job's final appeal. "I have made a covenant with my eyes. How then can I gaze at a virgin?" That's in Job 31:1. Job 31:7. "If my step has turned aside from the way, and my heart has gone after my eyes, and if any spot has stuck to my hands." And we can compare that to Numbers 15:39. "And it shall be a tassel for you to look at and remember all the commandments of Yahuah, to do them, not to follow after your own heart and your own eyes, which you are inclined to whore after." Right? So how many of y'all got on your ZZs right now? Hmm? Hmm? Yeah. Now, an honest judgment of Job will reveal his integrity. Job has maintained his integrity throughout his suffering. He knew he didn't do anything wrong. He has made sure he didn't go after what his eyes desired. Mm. So lastly, we come here in the Song of Solomon, all right? In the Song of Songs, on the other hand, the man sings the praises of his beloved for making his heart beat with a glance of her eyes. And we see that in Song of Solomon 4:9. And the woman says that in the eyes of her lover, she has become as one who finds peace or shalom. And we'll see that in Song of Solomon 8:10. The word for heart in this context is leab or levav, to be enclosed as it with fat, by implication to unheart, i.e. in a good sense, transport with love, or in a bad sense, to stultify. Song of Solomon 4:9. You have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride. You have captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. And Song of Solomon 8:10. I was a wall, and my breasts were like towers. Then I was in his eyes as one who finds peace or shalom. So this brought completeness or wholeness. The love between the woman and her beloved brings them both fulfillment and wholeness. So basically, what I'm getting at is that one of your gates, of course, according is your eyes, and you have to protect them, especially when it comes to things of the spiritual world. You can't let these things distract you to the point where you just forget who you're here for, which is the Father. And it's not like all of this stuff hasn't already been said. You know it was coming. You know. Now it's time to show that you can deal with it. You can deal with it the proper way. Now, the next lesson we're going to deal with the ears, but it's still going to be the same premise. It's going to be the same premise when it comes to your eyes, when it comes to the ears, and when it comes to your mouth. You have to guard these things. That's what this lesson is all about: is guarding these gates. Because the adversary is going to use each and every one of them to pull you away from the path that you're on. So therefore, having that foundation and getting in the world is what's going to separate you from that. You can walk that straight path, right? So with that being said, any questions pertaining to the lesson? All right. Hallelujah. Moreh Chanan.
Hallelujah. There's a little song said, "Be careful, little eyes, what you see."
I got a question.
Go ahead.
So my question about the scripture you read about Job, saying that he would make a covenant with his eyes, to look upon a virgin. Would he be in any type of sin if he looked upon a virgin? Like, what's the context with that? I think I missed that part.
Give me 1 second.
Shalom. All right, while he's getting that information, inshallah, he coming back. You gotta reboot.
Can you hear me?
Can.
Oh man, I just lost everything.
Was that the apple of your eye?
Leave me alone. Leave me alone. While you're here, I'll get back to you on that one. Okay. I'll message you on that one for the whole context of what he was talking about. It's not just something. It goes into a whole nother scope. It's not a scope of this lesson, but I'll get back in that to you, Richard. Any other questions? All right.
All right. Hallelujah. Well, with that, I'm gonna ask Victor keep busy. I can't ask him right now. Or Lamadyahu, do you have anything before we close?
No, I have anything.
Just want to remind everybody tomorrow is Hebrew class for those that are attending. 8 p.m.
Oh, they didn't get the email.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
Oh, okay. I think they got the reminder.
Standard reminder,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for those that are a part of that. See that they're asking what email. Hallelujah. Yahuah, would you pray us out, Aki?
He's like, what?
Guys, man, I'm telling you. Okay. All right. Sorry. So my speaker closer to me here. Told everybody for this time, for this time of teaching, this time of gathering, Yahuah, that you've allowed us to come together. For we know, Yahuah, that you've said when 2 or 3 are gathered in your name, in the name of Yahushua, that we are, that you are in the midst of us. And we thank you, Yahuah, for the strengthening that we receive from the word that we hear. And Yahuah, we give you praise, honor, and esteem for your keeping of us in this hour, Father, of confusion in the world. For we are not a part of this world, Yahuah, and we know that our foundation is you. Your word is our foundation, Yahuah. And we thank you for that continuous outpouring of the word from the Morehs whom you've placed in our lives. Father, we thank you for them. We ask you, Yahuah, to continue to protect them and their mishpachah, keep them. And as you provide for them, Yahuah, we will always remember to give you the praise, honor, and esteem. And we thank you once again, Father, for all that you have done. For we are grateful for everything that you give us, Father, everything that you do for us. Father, we could not do this without you. And we know that we are nothing without you, Yahuah. So we praise you and we thank you daily. Every second of the day, Father, we give you the praise, honor, and esteem. Without fail, Father, without being tired, Yahuah. We are grateful and thankful to be able to open up our mouths and give you praise. We thank you, Father, for all that you have done. In Yahushua HaMashiach's name, Hallel to Yahuah, Amen.